Creating a repeat pattern from your own artwork in Photoshop. Okay, so what we are going to be doing is taking your own artwork and using it to create a repeat pattern in Photoshop, which is quite straightforward, as you will see. Okay, so I have one of my collages here ready to go. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select all, so I can do that by Command or Control A, and that selects the whole artwork. And you can see I'm in a JPEG right now, which was the original file. Then you go to Edit. So it's the second from the left. It's beside File. You go Edit, pull down to Define Pattern. And you want to click on that and give it a name. I'm fine with that. And what that does is it creates a repeating tile of whatever you have selected. Now, I'm going to create a new document, and there's various ways to use pattern fills. You can create a selection, pull down from Edit, go to Edit Fill, and then you can scroll down on the menu to Pattern, and then select the pattern. Problem with that is it doesn't give you a whole lot of control. So what we're going to do instead is I'm actually going to create a new layer, and I'm going to head down to the cookie function, which is down here, and it is like the little New York cookie. It's about the middle of the uh, palette that has your layers on it. If you click and hold on that, you can see that you've got various choices of items on the menu, and one of them is pattern. And the cool thing about this is if you click it from there and then select your pattern, oops, I want to get rid of my selection though. Oops, I still have my previous selection on that. I'm going to delete that layer. There we go. And Control D is deselect, so make sure you don't have a selection going or it'll want to fill that. But I want to go back to putting in a pattern that's going to cover the whole canvas that I've got going. Now, cool thing about this now is whereas the other one, you have to go in and adjust the scale of it. With this one, you can scale it immediately when you are creating the artwork. So I'm going to go to the slider and I'm going to scale down a little bit to see how my repeat is doing. Okay, so I'm looking at that, and a couple things are not working for me. One, I need to remove my signature because I don't need that going through it. I also don't like from when I originally photographed the artwork. You can see it's much lighter on the top and darker on the bottom, and it's creating this very strong tile, whereas I want the flowers to float and I want the background to be solid. So that needs to get fixed. I'm also kind of feeling that it's a little value heavy on the right-hand side of my flowers. So I've got those two yellow petals. I want to balance it out a little bit more, which is quite easy to do. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my artwork, original artwork, and I'm going to make some adjustments. First of all, I'm going to get rid of my logo, my little word mark over there. And for that, I'm going to use my clone stamp tool. Clone stamp is very handy because what it does is you can click in one place in the document, hit the Option key, and then anywhere else you click, it'll be basically copying it. If you can see, I've got that little plus sign. That's where it's copying from, and I'm copying it over. So this is very good when you want to get rid of things like dust specks or if you are cleaning up a repeat tile and you need to move something from one section to another to balance out the repeat, the clone stamp tool is very handy for that. Okay. And then the other tool I want to use is the object selection tool. So selections, you've got a couple different ones. I like object for this particular um, function because what it does is you can click on areas and it'll immediately select it for you as opposed to having to go and create the vector. It basically draws the vector for you. And I'm going to click, 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 and grab my entire flower, hold shift. You can see when I'm holding shift with the clicking, it's expanding so that I now have the full flower selected. It's looking good. I'm going to Control C, which is copy, Control V, and you'll see that Photoshop has put my nice flower on its own layer. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually create two of them. I'm going to copy that layer. So I've got layer one and layer one copy. And I'm going to hit the transform, which is the Control T or Command T, which allows you to move and change your shapes around. And I'm actually going to flip it because I want to basically have this petal on the lower left-hand side where it is and get rid of the rest of it. So that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to hit return or enter, and that will move it over. Now I just need to go back to using my selection tool and select the stuff I don't want, which is basically 3/4 of my flower. And then I'm going to delete that. And so once again, I only have that petal happening. And I'm going to Command Control D, which is deselect, get rid of anything else that's on here. I've got couple little bits here and there of the artwork, which I don't want. So I'm going to grab the eraser tool and just erase whatever little bits that did not get selected by my selection tool. There we go. No biggie. Okay. Then I want to take a look at how this is sitting on my flower. It's not sitting exactly as it was in the other side. So I want to get rid of some of my petal over here. And again, I'm going to use the eraser tool. The cool thing about eraser tool is if I am on the layer with just my petal, it's only going to erase the things that you're actually are on that layer. So it won't be touching layer one. It'll only be working on layer two or layer one copy over here. So I'm gonna gently go in with the eraser. One tip with the eraser is do it in kind of shorter strokes because if you have to Control Z and step back, it'll step back everything you've done before you took your finger off the mouse. So if you did a whole bunch of erasing like that, I don't want to, if had I done that all in one go, it would have started off basically from the beginning. So do it in smaller movements. There we go. I think that's looking pretty. Ooh, I don't like that one so much. There we go. And that's looking good. Maybe take a little bit off the top. Okay. So once I get what I like there, I am going to actually slam this down on the layer beneath because it does seem to be covering. We're good. Like maybe move a little bit of that layer. I've got a tiny little blue. So what I'm actually going to do is head down to layer one, get rid of that little blue because be careful with that because now I'm on that layer and I definitely can erase everything that's on there. So I just want to get that little blue shadow from the old petal that's on there. There we go. Okay. Once I have what I like, I'm going to head over to here, and I'm going to click on the layer and say merge down. So in Photoshop, if you have a whole bunch of layers, eventually you're going to want to flatten it if you want to save it as a JPEG. You can also merge down one layer onto another, because if you only want to merge two layers, you just go to the layer above and then merge it. It's like a stack of pancakes. So I like how my um, flower is looking. The only other thing I want to do is that background, because it still is too light on top and too dark on the bottom. So I'm going to grab my eyedropper tool for this one, and I'm going to pick a blue that I like for this. I think I like something darker. I like that kind of rich blue down there, and I'm going to eyedropper it, and you can see whatever I'm clicking, it shows up in the color swatches on the left-hand side. So I'm looking that, yeah, that's looking good. And then I'm going to head back over here. I'm going to go back to our cookie and go, instead of, oops, um, pattern, this time I'm going to do solid color. And what that does is Photoshop will create a whole new layer filled with the color that you chose. Now, the only trick is it's above my flower layer, so I have to either move the flower above it or the color layer below. And that's looking pretty good. All right, so now I want to flatten this because I want to select it as a pattern. So instead of doing merge down, I'm going to flatten the image. Everything is now on one layer. At this point, it's a good idea to save it as the tile. Do save as and then name it blue flower tile or whatever you want to call it. Okay, so let's head back to our document where we tested it out. Now I'm going to do the same thing. Now, the other cool thing about your pattern fill, if you use the cookie, is that you can click on it and then it'll give you the pull down menu to fill with whatever you want, if you want to change whatever's filled. Why does that not look like it's... Oh, did I forget to create that new pattern? I think I forgot to create a new pattern. Okay, let's do select all, edit, define pattern, and then we'll call this one Blue Flower Collage 1. There we go. And then we'll get back to our document and head down to the pull down. Oh, look at that. So now we have better looking repeat, nice solid background for it to float on. Everything is looking good. So that is the first part of creating the repeat pattern in Photoshop. Now, once you've got this all set up, you can do other cool things with your document. So I'm going to create some I want to first of all take my pattern fill and actually get it on a layer. So I'm going to click the layer and flatten image. There we go. So now I have my pattern. It's not a fill, it's actually on the layer. And I want to create some more of them because I want to do colorways at this point. I love the different colorways. Well, this is very easy to do in Photoshop, as you will see. So I'm going to click on my layer. I'm going to go ahead, pull it down onto the little plus sign here. And every time I do that, it's going to give me a new layer. I'm going to do about 6 or 7 of them. There we go. Now, I'm going to head to the top one because the way Photoshop works is in terms of visibility, you always see what's on the top layer. It doesn't show right now because everything's the exact same color. It's the same image, but you will see now that I'm going to start doing my colors, I'm going to move down like the stack of pancakes. So start on the top, otherwise you're not going to see what's happening. Head over to the image pull down, which is the third one in the row, and you want to go to adjustments. And then you want to head over to color balance. No, hue and saturation. There we go. Yes, hue and saturation, where you will get this particular uh, palette over here. You'll notice when I go to slider number 1, as I pull it, it's going to change the hue in my repeat pattern very easily. So I'm going to find one that I like. Got that nice pretty turquoise. Hit OK. Then I'm going to turn off the visibility, head down to the next layer. Pull so I get a really nice purple. Turn off the visibility. Next layer. Image adjustments, hue. And go down the stack. So this way you can do your colorways very quickly in Photoshop. Now you can also play around with saturation, because what that does is it deals with chroma. It can be very bright chroma, or it can take it down to none, right? A way to get a good grayscale is to drag that over to the saturation. Then you can head over to lightness or darkness, play around with that until you get something you like, and that can give you your gray layer. It's always nice to have a gray scale. Man, 0 always puts you back in the center of your screen. And then you can head down and create all the beautiful colors that you love in pattern design. Okay. So that is very quick and easy way to create beautiful colorways in Photoshop when you are making repeat patterns. Now, okay, so when you are creating patterns in Photoshop, you've got the beautiful color adjustments made very easy, but the repeat itself is kind of basic. It is literally the basic repeat, which is one image beside the other. So what I like to do sometimes, if I want something a little more sophisticated for my repeat pattern structure, is I'm going to go back to my tile. I'm going to Control C. I've selected all of it. So Control A, Command A is everything. Control C is copy. I'm actually then going to head over to Illustrator and show you a handy way to do better repeat patterns in Illustrator. Okay, so I'm going to start with a new document. I'm going to Control V my artwork into the document. You can see it's huge because it was a very large Photoshop file. If something like this is massive like that, you can always go to the scale function and double click scale and then take it down like 25%. And then figure out from that, maybe like 50% of that will be good size for this particular artwork. And then you can do object. So it's a pull down menu from the object, which is the third one over. Head over to pattern and then pattern make. And nice thing about pattern make is it allows you to have different repeat structures, right? And so you can play around with, like, sometimes like with the hexagon ones, you have to kind of adjust the artwork a little bit so that it is more hexagonal. You can space it out a little bit on the edges, but for this one, I'm fine with what they call brick by column, which I call half drop, which is a very famous um, repeat structure. And then once you got something you like, you can click done up here. And then when you create artwork, it could be the whole page, it could be the shape of a garment, it could be anything. Head over to your swatches and you will have the repeat there ready for you. And then that one can be scaled by, if you go to your scale tool, only transform patterns selected, you should be fine. Okay, and that is a better way to do more sophisticated repeats in Illustrator once you have set up your Photoshop tile.